Hello everyone, this is Peter Geday from ManageXValue.com. In our previous video, we focused on the resource allocation and portfolio management capability of the ManageXValue risk quantification platform. In this video, we're going to still remain on the portfolio allocation dashboards, but I want to focus on the concepts of risk tolerance instead. So we briefly covered the point that as we look at the overall portfolio performance over 10 years within the platform, you can see how the risk mitigation investments provide risk mitigation benefits over time. And in 2027 here, we get to the highest overall risk mitigation from these investments. At this point, the loss exceedance curve indicates that the tail end risk gets below the risk tolerance that is defined by the hypothetical leadership team. However, it still seems that the exposure at the lower levels of the loss exceedance curve is still significantly higher than the risk tolerance itself. So there, in other terms, there is still work to do for the risk teams. Now, what is important when leadership teams, boards, executive teams, or even in some sectors, potentially the regulators influence or make decisions around risk tolerance, it is very important to understand and put the overall risk tolerance not just in absolute terms, but in relative terms as well. Because in absolute terms, this chart may suggest that there is a pretty high risk tolerance for the overall business because the absolute values are very high. At the same time, if the organization switches to a relative view relative to the market capitalization for the business, what you see here is that the overall risk for the business, the expected risk for the business, is only 2.8% of the market cap for a given year. And then more importantly, when we look at the risk tolerance itself, what you can see that there's only the management team defined here that they give only or allow only 45% likelihood that the exposure in a given year will exceed 0.5% of the market capitalization in a given year. Obviously, this is relatively aggressive in terms of what is the required risk mitigation for the overall risk teams. And in other terms, it could be potentially very difficult to achieve. The flip side of this, of course, is that if management teams or regulators push for a very, very low level of risk tolerance for the organization, then that will also require funding and approval for fundings. Because risk mitigation can only be achieved with investments within the organization, and those investments would require funding. So risk teams can come up with multiple investments given the very low risk tolerance level in order to decrease the loss exposure for the organization and get closer or below, ideally below the risk tolerance level. And those investments are going to require funding. And if the management team or regulators define a very low risk tolerance level, then the flip side of that, they should also probably provide funding for these risk mitigation investments. Of course, if there are enough resources, then looking at the investments, it is key that as long as you have investments which have very high excess value probability, meaning that the risk mitigation benefits of those investments far exceed the overall cost of the investments, or in other terms, the return on those investments are very high, then those are relatively easy decisions to make around funding. However, as you will see in future videos, they're very quickly for risk mitigation investments, diminishing returns is coming up because every early investment will decrease the return on subsequent investments. So if you are interested in that type of topic, let me know in the comments below. And if you are interested in a more detailed video of the ManageXValue risk quantification platform, then head over to ManageXValue.com, request a demo, and we would be happy to provide you one. Thank you very much. Bye.